in Antalya when Ukraine had the maximum amount of leverage and Russia did not have control over nearly as much Ukrainian territory as it did. Every single step of the way I said, now's the best time. Now is the best time. Yesterday's the best time to put an end to this. Russia is waging this war in their minds, in their estimation, in the estimation of the third world, at the behest.
Ghislaine Maxwell has cleared
like
Donald Trump.
Putin was giving us a clue. He's meeting with one leader in the Kremlin today, signaling where he might meet another, the United Arab Emirates.
I can't be the only one that thinks like this kind of grandiose behavior and like massive halls and shit still kind of hits. Like big ass, when you got to do like world changing events, like when you got to do like negotiations about what happens with the rest of the globe, like you got to do it at a big ass table. You know what I mean? You cannot be doing negotiations in a tiny table. Like it can't be a conference room table either. It has to be like, it has to have motif to it, you know? I don't know if it's because like I'm too Ottoman pilled or something, but like you need to have ornaments, you know? That's just me. This man got so old. This man HasanAbi got so old. What the hell? Why? Because I appreciate the effort people put in, you know? Is it true most leaders in the West are Jews? No. What the? That's the guy who asked me to get the hell out of the country because he wanted to raise his pussy, by the way. That's that guy. Follow-up question. He's like, get the hell out. If you don't want me to have sex with racist white women, you need to get the fuck out of this stupid country. Nah, this is way too czarist pilled, man. Look how gaudy that bullshit is. At least have some taste if you're going to do something grandiose.
Appears to be the most likely venue for the summit with Donald Trump after the Russian president held talks.
Like, look how big that room is. That's crazy. Look how big the room is, bro. That's wild to me. Yeah. Ironically enough, the only Jewish leader in the Western world is Claudia Sheinbaum, and she's literally anti-Israel, or at least a lot more anti-Israel than the American leadership is, certainly. I guess Zelensky too, but Zelensky doesn't really count. Zelensky is the one that's most over by Israel, ironically enough, also.
States leader.
We have many friends who are ready to help us organize such meetings. One of them is the president of the United Arab Emirates, so I think we'll decide on something. This would be one of the very suitable places.
Their last summit was in 2018, and the next could be in a matter of days. Donald Trump is desperate for a deal on Ukraine, but it sounds like Moscow sees benefits too.
This, of course, can become an important historic event, an event when Russia's position will be clearly conveyed to President Trump, and we hope that this dialogue will continue even more actively, including in the economic area.
For the White House, though, the priority is peace. It had given Russia until Friday to end the war or face sanctions. News of the summit came after US envoy Steve Witkoff's visit to Moscow, but it doesn't necessarily...
Like, look at that table, bro. You gotta have a weird table. If you're gonna have a convo like this, it's gotta be on a table like that. This is nothing to do with like Vladimir Putin's position on this, okay? I am anti-Putin. I do wish, however, we had like similar weird shit. Justice League type table. Yeah, I don't like the color palette too much.
Mean there'll be a ceasefire. On the one hand, a summit could mean that a significant point of agreement has been reached, and all that's needed...
They're building the ballroom, dog? No, but it doesn't hit the same because it's not like, it wasn't built like 400 years ago. You know what I mean? It's being built now. It's going to be made with like drywall and all of the modern techniques that we adopt. It's not going to have like fancy ornaments that people literally toiled away making and probably died in the process of building. Okay? That's what I mean. There's like a history associated with this. It's just like lame ass, gaudy ass, drywall ass, gold coated bullshit. I don't like that. We need artisans, you know? Yeah, American culture. Trump's gonna serve McDonald's in there. Exactly. Your country has literally no history nor culture aside from gun burger. No, I know. This is why, wait, what? Someone says something about Catholicism. It's the one thing that I like about Catholicism. That's true.
Now for the leaders to sign off on it. On the other hand, it could just be for show, a tactic by Russia to temper US anger. They could just be agreeing to something that gives the illusion of progress, which in reality delivers anything but.
Well, I know that
this expert in US-Russia relations sees grounds for optimism.
Trump is not stupid, you know, he has his own deadlines. If he has a summit for nothing, that would put him in a rather embarrassing position back at home and also with his allies, because he has invested a lot.
But Russia has left the American president disappointed before.
Every smart guy, every intelligent guy has to literally just actively lie on camera and be like, he's not stupid, he's a smart guy. That's just not true, man. Especially on this issue, he has actively looked like a complete moron. Bro, he straight up tweeted, Vladimir, stop. What do you mean? Only a stupid person would do that. 3 years of this war and Russia has won, yet talks of a settlement is insane still to the West. I mean, I don't think it's... I was going to talk about this side of the story as well. Well, not this. Hold on. And not this. And not this. And not this. Not this either. Where is it? God damn it. Oh, here. This. Ukrainian support for war effort has collapsed. I think a lot more Ukrainians are aware of the situation than the way that like the liberal media has presented it. Okay. Having said that, it is still really up that America is using Ukraine continuously as a fleshlight instead of trying to settle this and then help Ukraine as much as possible.
And there's still no sign it's willing to compromise yet. Ivor Bennett, Sky News, Moscow.
It's also crazy because like still we'll talk about me being like pro-Russia or whatever. And it's like, this is precisely what I said that was going to happen. And it's happening in real time. And the people who said, no, it's never going to happen. Ukraine is inevitably going to win. Ukraine is winning the war. Ukraine is winning the war over and over and over again, demanding that like, demanding that people throw themselves in the meat grinder and saying that Ukraine, when leverage, should have pushed for a ceasefire instead of being duped into relitigating this war effort at the behest of Western powers who literally suffer nothing in the process. They're all still yelling. They're still yelling. Ukrainian support for war effort collapses. Public sours on Washington. Loses hope for quick NATO ascension. London. Most Ukrainians now favor ending the war with Russia through negotiations, as support for fighting until victory has dropped sharply since the early days of the conflict. Although their hopes for joining NATO and the European Union have faded and approval of U.S. leadership has plummeted, Ukrainians still see the EU, UK, and U.S. as a key to ending the war. Yet most doubt that will happen anytime soon. More than 3 years into the war, Ukrainian support for continuing to fight until victory has hit a new low. In Gallup's most recent poll of Ukraine, conducted in early July, 69% say they favor a negotiated end to the war as soon as possible, compared with 24% who support continuing to fight until victory. This marks nearly a complete reversal from public opinion in 2022, when 73% favored Ukraine fighting until victory and 22% preferred that Ukraine seek a negotiated end as soon as possible. Like the Ukrainians have had a majority opinion since 2024. Majority of the Ukrainian public has been saying Ukraine should seek to negotiate an end to the war as soon as possible since 2024. Support for the war effort has declined steadily across all segments of the Ukrainian population, regardless of the region or demographic group. This shift comes as diplomatic efforts gain new traction. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has signaled readiness for direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, proposing renewed negotiations. The UK says they're ready to send troops if the US leads the effort. Dude, this is what first of all, why would the US lead the effort as a nuclear power? And the UK is not going to send troops. They know that they're only saying that because they know America's not going to send troops. It's just like, there were so many off-ramps. There were so many off-ramps at every stage. There were so many goddamn off-ramps. All the way from the Minsk agreement, all the way from, not even before then, 2008, George W. Bush on his way out being like, I'm going to bring in Georgia and Ukraine into NATO out of nowhere, all the way to the Minsk agreements and not following through on the conditions of the Minsk agreements, all the way to the ceasefire negotiation that was put forward, a 15-point plan in Antalya, when Ukraine had the maximum amount of leverage and Russia did not have control over nearly as much Ukrainian territory as it did. Every single step of the way I said, now's the best time. Now is the best time. Yesterday's the best time to put an end to this. Russia is waging this war in their minds, in their estimation, in the estimation of the third world, at the behest and fucked over by American imperialism, while Russia is engaging in irredentus acts that are unconscionable and unjust and violent and totally immoral. That is the analysis that the rest of the countries around the globe are looking at. That is what they're looking at. They're looking at Ukraine as an extension of the West, and they're looking at, you sound like Israel asking Hamas why they won't just agree to a ceasefire. What do you mean? Hamas has put forward 1 million ceasefire proposals. Israel's the one who them. No, your analysis is busted here. This is, of course, also completely, you have to be completely oblivious of the conditions on the ground, and not only the conditions on the ground, but also who America is funding in this situation. America has complete control over Israel. They can stop Israel's genocide tomorrow. They don't have the same control over Russia, a country that is a foreign adversary that has designed this entire economy to withstand American sanctions, clearly demonstrated by the fact that they have continued their war for years at this point. Do you not understand? The best possible solution to this was to bring China to the table and come to a reasonable proposal. Okay? Russia is a foreign adversary with nukes. Israel is a foreign ally with nukes. America has complete control over Israel. Saying that Ukraine should just make a deal with someone who has no interest in making a deal, brother, Russia most likely would have taken that deal when they actually incurred penalties and could not literally overtake Kyiv in this supposed military operation that was going to take a week or two. That's why I'm saying Ukraine had maximum leverage at that point. Now it's too late. They already dug in. If Russia wanted a deal, there would have been one. I think that the deal that was presented was already super on Russia's side. Okay? You're never this pragmatic about Palestine. That is literally not true. That is not true. That is objectively untrue. I have demanded a ceasefire in Palestine as well. I have celebrated the efforts of short-term ceasefires, even that allowed a moment of respite for Palestinians, even with the full knowledge that Israel was going to continue bombing anyway. I've literally, you've been in here, you've heard my words. Do you think Ukraine should just give away some land just because Russia wants it? No, I don't. And I think it's a non-starter at this point, regardless. I don't think they should. But what the fuck is going to happen at this point? Remember, Russia is a foreign adversary. Israel is not. We have complete control over Israel. We do not have complete control over Russia. And my advocacy always has been to bring China into the table so that there is at least a more managed, the guy behind Russia, the country behind Russia that has tremendous global power is China. Okay? So this is not even a conversation or a bargain that you need to do directly with Russia. You need to fucking bring China to the table. Okay? That's what you're supposed to do. But instead, we're taking the worst possible outcome here, which is to take Russia at its word when they keep saying over and over again that they're, especially because they're dug in at this point, they are using American politics, a lack of interest from regular Ukrainians to continue this war, as an opportunity to demand more land that they've already annexed. That's what happened in the last negotiations process. It's ridiculous. The only way to put an end to all of this is by bringing China to the table as well. Why would China go against Russia and with America? Because they're the most pragmatic on the planet. That's precisely the same reason why China has never stopped trading with Israel in the same process. They're trade maxers. They're trade maxers through and through. So any opportunity that actually stops instability in global trade is an opportunity I think China will take. China is not, especially when it comes to its foreign policy, China is not this like socialist USSR adjacent country that you think it is. This is not China's fight. No, this isn't China's fight. You're right. But China does have a lot of influence over Russia. Braindead shadows like Mr. High will never admit the U.S. and Western allies mislead the Ukrainians to not negotiate when they had a near equal footing with Russia and led them to fight until they lost their footing and are now overwhelmingly in the weaker position. Not only that, but also America's like saying that they want to take over minerals in Ukraine too, whatever that even means. China wants the war to go on forever. They know that the second it's over, NATO will shift its focus to China, will be next on the chopping block. I think that, so since China is trading with Russia, it means that China has leverage. It's not just because of trade. China is a country that's backing Russia. If there are two poles currently, like there were in the Cold War, if America is the one leader, China is the other one on the opposing side. This doesn't mean that they're like heavily involved, but you can absolutely make a deal. You can absolutely make a deal with China in mind. Instead, America has basically decided to go on the full tilt China tip, and we're just trying to bite off more than we can chew. Ukrainians don't even want to keep fighting this war, so chatters yelling at you should go fight in their place. I mean, sure. Support for the war effort has declined steadily across all segments of the Ukrainian population, regardless of region or demographic group. The shift comes as diplomatic efforts gain new traction. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has signaled readiness for direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, proposing renewed negotiations, while U.S. President Donald Trump is attempting to pressure the Kremlin with the threat of sanctions. Despite these moves, the conflict continues largely unabated. Daily missile and drone attacks persist, and fighting remains intense among multiple sections of the front line. Lasting end to active fighting not expected to arrive soon. Though a clear majority of Ukrainians now favor a negotiated end of the war as soon as possible, most are skeptical that active fighting will end soon. 1 in 4, 25% think it's likely that active fighting will come to an end within the next 12 months. Although only 5% see it as very likely. Over 2/3, 68%, over 68% think it's unlikely that active fighting will come to an end in the next year. Ukrainians sour on Washington but see a role for U.S. in the peace negotiations. Ukrainians' view on the most prominent military ally have shifted decisively since the early months of the war. In 2025, 16% of Ukrainians approve of U.S. leadership. No shit. While 73% expressed disapproval, a record high. All the goodwill that Washington built up in 2022 when 66% approved of U.S. leadership has evaporated. I mean, it's been a nosedive ever since, though. Let's be real. Zelensky literally proving you right. Back during his meeting in the U.S., he said there should be only fighting, no talks, and now he walked it back, and the majority of the Ukrainian population is also. So what are these chatters saying? Yeah. Ukrainian goodwill towards Washington evaporates. No shit. It is especially a no shit moment after Donald Trump literally pulled Zelensky to the table to bully him and yell at him. And then also got duped by Vladimir Putin, who dangled like a potential ceasefire negotiation in front of him, and then made Donald Trump embarrass our proxy. Yeah, why would China care? Also, China brokered the Saudi-Iran deal, driving wave of reconciliation, says Wong. I mean, there's a difference here. The reason why they did this is because it's beneficial for both parties for them to no longer war over Yemen. Tensions between Kyiv and Washington have risen in 2025 after Trump's return to office. A tense meeting between Trump and Zelensky in the Oval Office late in February coincided with a temporary pause in U.S. military assistance. That was insane. By contrast, perceptions of Germany have improved significantly this year. Leadership approval of Berlin has reached a record high of 62%, despite Germany's more cautious stance in the war's early months. Approval of Russia's remains negligible, 1%, while China continues to receive low ratings, 8%, as it has since the war began. Despite sharp disapproval of U.S. leadership, most Ukrainians still view Washington as having a meaningful role to play in the resolving the conflict. 70% believe the U.S. should play a significant role in peace talks, in line with views towards EU countries, 75%, and the UK, 71%. Although some negotiations have recently taken place in Turkey, 55% of Ukrainians supported significant involvement, notably lower. The only ones the only ones screaming Slava Ukraine is the Turks. Again, if you're saying Ukraine is a responsibility to stop the war with Russia, you're also saying Palestine is a responsibility to stop the war with Israel. Is this the exact same situation minus who backs them? Minus who backs them? Who backs them, I think, is a pretty big deal, don't you think? Donald Trump could quite literally end Israel's actions, as many American presidents have, with one phone call. Donald Trump can't make a million phone calls and get Vladimir Putin to do his bidding. So, no, it's not the same situation. It's not the same situation at all. Having said that, if you're looking at it from the most reductive lens, a much larger country pummeling a smaller country, because Ukraine and Russia is two sovereign states fighting one another, okay? One party is obviously overwhelmingly in the wrong and doing the wrong, okay? The other party is simply defending itself. Then, yeah, on that front, yes, Israel versus the Palestinian children that are being slaughtered with regular frequency is, it has some similarities, yes. One is an irredentist act from a foreign adversary. The other is a foreign ally which has decided to do whatever the fuck it wants and can simply do whatever the fuck it wants to a country it is the belligerent occupier of already. It's like saying India versus Pakistan is like Israel, Palestine. It's the dumbest shatters. Yeah. You can simply force Russia to stop by invading them. Dude, why didn't America think of that? That seems like a brilliant idea. You can make your allies who have entertained the comforts only because they're your permanent allies do things. You can't do that to an adversary with nukes that has designed his entire nuclear arsenal around fighting back against America. Unless you think that, like, ban all trade. I mean, sure, I great. I don't have an issue with that. I mean, I want it to be done to Israel as well, but they did already do that. That's why Donald Trump is entertaining secondary tariffs to India now, because India is used as like a way for Russian oil to enter the global market. And don't siege Stalingrad, just take it. The definition of world war is when two great powers directly fight. For your information, there is no world war in the current stage because World War II ended with a nuclear bomb. That is the reason why there is no more world war, unless we get to an environment where we just open up the permission structure to entertain nuclear holocaust. It's just, oh, mini nukes, tactical nukes. It's fine. It's like a baby nuke that was launched against a country that doesn't have nukes. You know, that type of shit. My point is, Ukraine isn't at fault for what Russia does. When did I say Ukraine is at fault? What do you think? I think that, like, oh, well, Ukraine's just standing there looking hot. Is that what you think I'm doing? I'm not. I'm not saying at fault. Why the fuck would Ukraine be at fault? Russia is the one who invaded. That's an entirely different conversation, which I'm not even entertaining at all. Ukrainian children are also slaughtered and you don't talk about it? No, I do. I do talk about it. He saw AI video of you saying things. Average American poli-sci majors. I don't really believe there were easy multiple off-ramps for Ukraine to settle before now, as any areas under Russian control basically get butchered. No, there were. It wouldn't have been an easy off-ramp, and Russia certainly might not have even entertained it for a long enough time. This is true, right? There is no assurance that Russia would not have continued its military incursion into Ukraine. They very well could have done that, okay? Just like Israel did. But my argument always was, okay, so you're back to square one, but you should always entertain a ceasefire. And at that point, if it could have been crafted and followed through on, then additional land grabs that Russia engaged in would not have happened. Anyway, how can you expect to negotiate if you can't trust your enemy to not reinvade? There was a ceasefire and Russia broke it. I mean, here, I'll give you a great example. Hamas. Did you see me yell at Hamas for doing a ceasefire, even though I also said Israel is most likely going to violate it? No, I didn't say that. You want to know why I didn't say that? Because I'm not stupid and bloodthirsty. You're yelling at Ukraine for Russia violating the ceasefire? Wait, what? No, I'm not. I think a lot of you guys simply want me to say, like, there is no peace for there's no opportunity for a ceasefire, and that we need to, like, invade Russia or something. Okay? No, you're talking about the second round of negotiations under Trump. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the first negotiations that took place when Biden was president. That's not what I'm talking about. Analysis. Putin's claim that war on Ukraine is the target Nazis is absurd. Here's why. What is this? This is my analysis too. It's so stupid. I've never lent credence to Putin's idiotic claim that like he was denazifying Ukraine. I don't know why you're sending this to me. I've actively made fun of this idiotic argument, which is, of course, the same argument that Israel also tried to launch. Hopes for a quick entry to NATO, EU fade further. Ukraine has long expressed a desire to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is seen by many. This was never going to happen. It was always a non-starter, and every single European ally, including the United States of America, knew that it was a non-starter, and they just actively lied about it in the media, while simultaneously sometimes being truthful. Russia has the world's weirdest Nazis look at Dugin. No, I know. But also, look at ACP. We got some weird-ass nationalists ourselves. Why? Why can't it happen? Well, look at Ukraine right now. Why does not Ukraine and Georgia get NATO? Why can't Georgia or Ukraine get accepted in the EU or NATO? That's the only way to survive, it seems. This is where you have to assume that the opposition, no matter how bloodthirsty, still has like some semblance of logic in the way that they behave. They do not want to be encircled by the enemy. Why can't Cuba or Canada and Mexico join a Chinese military alliance? Yeah, it's similar to that. You don't know, but what you're talking about this. Ukraine will be in NATO the same year that Turkey will join. You mean the same year Turkey will join the EU. So why didn't they invade the Baltics or Finland when they were floating NATO? Well, because Finland did the NATO thing expertly. They joined only after they realized that Russia did not have the capacity to also open up a new front. That's why. Before the invasion of Ukraine, Finland had not joined NATO at all. It was not something that was entertained. There was a blanket neutrality. Now Finland has to do 5% GDP. So good luck. Good luck to the Finnish chatters on Americanizing the Finlandization of NATO. I NATOize Finland. Finland has been taking advantage of us for years. That's right. Believe it. It's time for Finland to no longer take advantage of us. You're an American talking to an American audience that has at least a small chance to influence our government to stop influencing our government to stop enabling genocide. We as Americans are not enabling Russia's imperialist expansion. All of our politicians already hate Russia, but they love Israel. Chatters want you to expend equal coverage of Ukraine for literally no political gains. Chatters don't understand that. No, but I have also covered Ukraine. Of course, I've covered Israel far more than I've covered Ukraine because we have far more involvement. And we have also far more power over ending the bloodshed in Gaza than we do over ending the bloodshed in Ukraine. You left Austin Show's birthday. Exactly. In Finland, we're literally Americafying. Our right-wing government is following Trump's policy step by step. Help us. No, it's over. What is this? In Russia, you would be arrested. Von der Leyen tells a protester as he's being arrested.
They can be happy that they are in a free country like Finland, where the free speech is a right, where they have not any restrictions. If they would be in Moscow...
Bro, this is literally so America coded, dude. This is a very American moment. That's awesome. This is like, we see this happening in America basically every day. Like they'll just like arrest someone. They'll arrest like Mahmoud Khalil, right? For the crime of criticizing Israel. And I'll be like, this is so up. This is so unacceptable. And chatters will be like, ha! If you had this kind of commentary, you'd be arrested in China, brother. And it's like, dude, what? I'm talking about a dude who literally just got arrested and saying this is not supposed to happen in America. And now you want me to be arrested for even criticizing the arrest. Bro, it gets worse. Not just any protester or candidate running for European Parliament elections 2024 in opposition. This took place in the middle of elections. Total silence from the so-called free media. Monday we'll be sitting in court in Helsinki for a peaceful protest. I mean, I don't know who the dude is that got arrested, okay? Whenever people say stuff like this, it just like freaks me out a little bit. The account that posted that video is a freak. Yeah, I can totally see that. I don't know. I don't know who the guy is that got arrested. That doesn't really make it any better. It's still hilarious and incredibly hypocritical to just be like, yeah, they'd arrest you in Moscow for this. It's like, okay, well, you're arresting him here. Radical steps must be taken to force Putin to partake in good faith negotiations. In my opinion, U.S. peacekeeping troops, including BRICS countries, must enter Ukraine and force Putin into a position where he has to choose either negotiate or attack the peacekeepers. Yeah, Trump could end it with one phone call. Yeah, by releasing Ryan Ruth. Exactly. If only he unleashed Ryan Ruth and 1,000 NATO-trained Afghan soldiers.
What is it?
Oh, we got South Park. Anyway, I don't know what's going to happen. I just don't think anything good is going to come out of this. I think we're so cooked. I think everyone is cooked. At this point, Zelensky will be replaced by an ultra-nationalist, ultra-right-wing government, isn't it? Either he is ousted during the war or after because he's already incredibly popular before the war started. His armament was slated to be wiped out in 2020 elections. I can't imagine the Ukrainians have let that go of that animosity, especially now after years of war. No, the reason why they didn't like Zelensky was because he was too, like, pro-Russia. He seemingly was more on the side of, like, managing the relationship with Russia. That's why Ukrainians didn't like him. And then they actually liked him for a while when he was anti-Russia. I mean, also they did literally elect him because he was, because he was like the seemingly anti-corruption candidate. And some people believe that he would be able to manage the relationship with Russia. And then when he was like, obviously after Russia invaded, people did not have an issue with the way he was posturing. I think a major factor playing here is Zelensky's committing to a policy of non-mobilization earlier when they saw success on the field, Hasan. But as the war dragged and tactically Ukraine went on the back foot, the government started using methods of mobilization which were honestly hated by everyone, like plainclothes officers exiting out of a van and beating you to shit, then loading you up and conscripting you is wild. Yeah, like there's a level of that you can get away with, I guess, in Russia, but you can't really get away with that in Ukraine if, like, the entire point of Ukrainian sovereignty is that you don't do the Russian shit in Ukraine, and that's why you want to be a Western-facing nation. So obviously a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, I don't want this. This is ridiculous. That's why there's chatters in here that are, like, hiding from the Ukrainian plainclothes officers so that they don't get, like, mobilized by force. Zelensky won 75% because he was anti-corruption. He became extremely unpopular before the war due to numerous corruption scandals. Yeah, the Panama Papers. At no point was he widely unpopular because he was not sufficiently pro-Ukraine. No, I'm saying that a lot of Zelensky's critics, I already said that. I said that Zelensky won as the anti-corruption guy. And then it turns out he was also corrupt, which people weren't very happy with. But most importantly, there was also a lot of criticism against Zelensky because they thought that he would be a moderating force and he wasn't aggressive enough against Russia, against Russian incursions. There were definitely people in Ukraine that were against Zelensky because they thought he was too naive. But also, what's really interesting about this is the fact that Western press is like covering this stuff, Ukrainian disapproval over continuing the war, and also not even continuing the war, continuing to fight, continuing to defend Ukraine, because I think that's the appropriate way to talk about this. But it does seem like while most Ukrainians are ready to see the fighting end, few expect it to happen soon. Ukrainians see key roles for the EU, UK, and the US to play in bringing the war to Washington is cratered. This year has also seen another decisive shift in hopes for a quick ascension to NATO, with now 32% expecting to be accepted in the next decade. As diplomatic efforts drag on, the future of Ukraine's war effort and its relationship with the international community remain deeply uncertain. It was always a fuck situation made infinitely worse by having the absolute worst ally on the planet, the United States of America. Okay? That's it. America has consistently discarded its allies over and over and over again. I didn't even think that they could do that to a whole ass country. Like, they do it to like Kurdish militia movements here and there. Sure. But that's not a whole ass sovereign nation state, man. It's crazy. Pouring in arms isn't going to bring about a solution. It's only going to prolong and exaggerate this war, Corbyn said. We might be in for years and years of war in Ukraine in 2022.